is now being recorded, and it's going.
Thank you, Philip. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Abela. I'm the chair of the licensing committee, and I'm the councillor for Haringey Ward. And we are meeting today for a meeting of the licensing subcommittee, and we usually start with introductions. So I'm going to first ask my panel members to introduce themselves. Councillor Peacock, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm Councillor Sheila Peacock, member for South Tottenham Ward.
Thank you, Sheila. Nick?
Councillor Nick DaCosta, member for Highgate Ward.
Thank you. Could I ask the legal advisor to introduce himself?
Robin Levitt, legal advisor.
Thank you, Robin. Could I ask the licensing team leader to introduce herself?
Good evening,
Lisa.
everybody. Good evening, everybody. I am Delia Barrett, the licensing team leader.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Delia.
everybody. My name is Amir Darwish, and I am representative for the noise and nuisance team.
Thank you. Could I ask the clerk to introduce himself, please?
Yes, my name is Philip Slaughter, and I'm the clerk for the committee today.
Thank you. Could I now ask the applicant to introduce himself? So I have Mr. Mohammed, who I believe is the applicant, and his representative, Mr. Mayhew. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mohammed. I am the Mictreats owner, applicant.
Thank you. And is Mr. Mayhew on the call?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Peter Mayhew. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you very much. And we also have the objectors on the call. So we've heard from the noise officer, Mr. Amir Darwish. We will have a representative of the police. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yep, good evening. My name's Lisa. I'm from Met Police Licensing.
Thank you. And I believe we also have residents who objected to this application. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Ursula. I'm one of the neighbours to Milk Treats.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Are there any other residents on the call? No. Is there anyone else who hasn't introduced themselves? So I see, for example, IMA on the call, Mustaf on the call. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mustafa, owner of Mictreats.
Thank you. What about the remaining two people on the call? Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm from Haringey Community Press. I'm a reporter at a community newspaper in Haringey.
Thank you, Grace. There's one person who I think hasn't introduced themselves. Would you like to introduce yourself? Can we, Robin, can we proceed without the introduction? Yes, okay, then we'll do that. So you should all be aware that this meeting is being recorded and it will be available for public viewing. There have been no apologies for absence to my knowledge, Clark, is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. We've not received any apologies.
Thank you. And are there any matters for urgent business?
No, Chair, there aren't.
Thank you. And now I'll turn to the members of the panel. Do you have any declarations of interest to make?
No declaration.
No.
Thank you. So I'm going to briefly summarize the procedure that we will follow in this meeting for everyone's benefit. The procedure has also been emailed to all the participants by the clerk. For the purposes of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the applicant will present their case to the subcommittee. The objectors and the subcommittee will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors will present their representation, and the subcommittee and the applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the subcommittee to deliberate and reach a decision. The decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. A few housekeeping rules. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. That's me. We will take all papers as read. So there's no need to repeat the content of the papers unless there is anything in particular that you wish to draw the panel's attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of any of the speakers. And if there are several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition among yourselves and perhaps consider choosing a single spokesperson to address all your concerns. So the meeting today relates to an application for a new premises license at Mick Treats. Ms. Barrett, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I just clarify, please? Mr. Mayhew, in one of the bundles that he sent through, did in fact put also in that request to have a little bit longer than 5 minutes when he comes to speak, to make his case to the panel. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. Mayhew, do you have an idea of how much time you're going to need for your intervention?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just because there are a number of representations that we have to address in the presentation. So, I mean, I will keep it as succinct as I can, but if we could get sort of 10 minutes, I think that would be helpful to us so that we could at least get through some of those points that we have to make and respond to those representations.
Thank you. I think 10 minutes is fine, but if you can be as succinct as possible, that would be helpful. And if the objectors want to go slightly beyond 5 minutes just to keep things fair, I'll also allow them a brief extension. But if everyone could try to be as succinct as possible, that would be very helpful. We've read all the papers, so we've seen all the evidence already. Ms. Barrett?
Thank you, Chair. And I'll bear that in mind that the committee has read the papers. So I will just briefly summarise, therefore. This is a new application that has been submitted for Mick Treats at 88 Bruce Grove, N17. The application is submitted by Mr. Mohammed, and he is seeking the ability to offer late night refreshment. Just for clarification, late night refreshment is the supply of hot food or hot drink between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. on any given day. The application seeks this ability between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. with the hours being open to the public Monday to Sunday, 12 midday until 2:15 a.m. each day. The application you can find at Appendix A. And I should say that the premises already operates until the early hours of the morning, until 2:15 a.m. For the panel's information. Mr. Mohammed says that he primarily provides cold food and cold drinks only at this time, and so was not requiring a premises license until this time. During the consultation period, there were representations made. You have got the Met Police here this evening. You will have in the pack, Chair, the Met Police representation. I understand that there has been some the conditions agreed with Mr. Mayhew. However, the outstanding matters is around the operating times or the times for licensed activity that has not been agreed with Mr. Mayhew and the police. The licensing authority are here this evening, and they have got their representation, which covers the past history or the known history for the premises and the objection to the hours being sought. You've got various representations from the residents who have expressed their concerns also, Chair. Within the pack, you will have, or you will have seen at Appendix E, the letter from Mr. Mayhew, where he was registering his objection to the representations submitted by the residents, due to the fact that the residents had put in their reps that they were objecting to the sale of alcohol. However, in those representations, the residents have gone on to speak about what they have been experiencing in regards to nuisance, antisocial behaviour and litter and so forth, that they are saying already stems from the premises, and therefore the licensing service took the position that the residents' representations were valid and would still stand. And this was there is communication in the bundle between the licensing service and Mr. Mayhew on this matter. Mr. Mayhew has also subsequently sent out a mediation letter that he asked to be shared with the residents. This was done. This is really trying to allay their concerns and to ask if they felt that they were in a position for their representations to be withdrawn. The residents came back to say that they wanted their representations to stand and to be able to come and address the committee on the points that they have raised. And you have that information and their responses at Appendix F of the report. Yeah. In terms of recommendations and what the committee is considering, once you've heard from all parties, considering the representations received and what is appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, the steps a subcommittee can take are to either grant the application as requested, grant the application whilst imposing additional conditions and or altering in any way the proposed operating schedule, exclude any licensable activities to which the application relates, or reject the whole or part of the application. Of course, members are aware that they should give full reasons as to whatever decision is made, Chair. And Chair, just to point also the additional documentation. So Mr. Mayhew has also submitted some pictures of additional signage and information that his client will be doing in response to some of the matters raised about litter picking and so forth, that were served to you all, and also a copy of the menu that is available from the premises at this moment. In terms of background, Chair, the premises is an end of terrace shop with residential above and Forest Gardens, which is a residential road to the side. The premises currently operates selling shakes, waffles and drinks, and are shown on their website by all the various food delivery and services also. The business has come to the attention of the council previously due to complaints relating to youth loitering and littering from the premises. The business has themselves requested for additional on-street bins. You have at section 3 there, Chair, the considerations with regard to the licensing policy, which I know that the committee is familiar with, and also around licensing hours, as well as the powers of the licensing authority in terms of making its decision and understanding that any decision is stayed for 21 days due to the ability for any of the parties present to lodge an appeal. And just to say, Chair, that in terms of other considerations, Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 comes into play, as does the Human Rights Act, Chair. And there I can leave it if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. So I have one question for you, Ms. Barrett, but before that, I just wanted to confirm, is Mr. Amir Darvish here on behalf of the Licensing Authority?
That's correct. He's here as on behalf of the Licensing Authority, yes.
Excellent. So my question is, I wanted your view on the so the applicant has already been opening until 2 a.m. and the applicant was open until 2 a.m. without a license. And the applicant's reasoning for this was that because he was only serving cold food, he considered that he did not need a license. Could you confirm that that interpretation is correct?
That is correct. If you're only doing cold food, cold drink after 11 o'clock at night, you do not need the premises license to show that you have late night refreshment. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Councillor Peacock. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
Am I on mute?
No, I can hear you, Councillor.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My question was also about that because I really didn't understand, and thank you for explaining about the license, because if they're not selling alcohol, why do they need a license? Could you explain that to me, please?
It's because under the Licensing Act 2003, there are 3 licensable activities that you require a license for. It's for the sale of alcohol, for regulated entertainment in its various forms, that's playing of music, dance, boxing, so forth, and also for late night refreshment, which is the ability to sell hot food and hot drink between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. That is a licensable activity that needs to be licensed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because obviously the first 2 didn't qualify at all, so I was a bit concerned about it all.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for Ms. Barrett?
Yes. Regarding oh, bear with me, I've now lost my reference. Terribly sorry for that. Where is it? So sorry. Regarding Schedule 2 of the Licensing Act, which relates to late night refreshment, can you confirm that if, for example, based on the reading, the law states anytime between the hours of 11 and 5 a.m. he supplies hot food or hot drink to members of the public on or from any premises, whether for consumption on or off the premises. Based on that, if the applicant is serving hot food via, let's say, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, etc., that would then fall under the law's interpretation of late night refreshment.
Correct. Yes, it would do.
Okay, so regardless if a patron is coming and saying no cold food only, if there's hot food going to Deliveroo, for example, that would then fall under this case.
It would be caught by late night refreshment. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all the questions for me for the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Are there any questions from anyone else for Ms. Barrett? If not, we will now hear from the applicant. Who is going to speak for the applicant? Is it Mr. Mayhew or Mr. Mohammed?
Yeah, I'll speak for the applicant, please.
Thank you. You have a maximum of 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the licensing officer, because I think that's going to save me some time in having to explain 1 or 2 things that I was looking to explain. I mean, this is a small shop which sells pancakes, treats, waffles, cookie dough, various different sweet treats, and you can see that from the menu which we supplied you on page 9 and 11 of the additional bundle. It currently opens, as we heard, until 2 o'clock, but after 11 o'clock they have to curtail their menu. So they have to stop people coming into the premises who are looking to buy crepes and waffles, and then they go onto all their various apps and they remove the products from the apps after 11 o'clock so that you can only order the cold food and the cold drink. So essentially they go onto the app and mark it as sold out for that evening so that that can't be ordered by Deliveroo or Uber Eats or what have you. And I have to say that the vast majority of their delivery service happens before 11 o'clock. So it's a relatively small venue. It doesn't have seats inside, doesn't have seats outside, so it doesn't encourage people to hang around in the area. What their ideal is that people come in, they order their food, order their milkshakes, and then they take them away to wherever they are going. So it's not a restaurant in the sense that people are hanging around inside, sitting down, eating. Of course, it's very difficult to determine what people are going to do once they leave the premises, but that's a point which I'll come back to a little bit later on. Now, you know, what this is not it's not a review of an existing premises license. So we're not reviewing a license which has existed. And it's not, as we said, a license to sell alcohol. Whether this license is granted or not, it gets us no closer to selling alcohol, and there's no desire to sell alcohol. This is literally a license saying, can we please sell waffles and crepes between 11 and 2 a.m. That's what this does. If this license is not granted, it doesn't stop the applicant from continuing to sell their cold food and cold drink and continuing to be open till 2 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, there is an argument which says having a license at least gives them a legal framework that they have to work to going forward, because currently they don't have that legal framework under the Licensing Act. And there's 20 odd conditions that have been offered by us and agreed with the police, as we heard, There's all the licensing regulation. There's all the punishments of very large fines in the courts of reviews of the current premises license, which only come into effect if this license is granted. If this license is not granted, we stay with the status quo, which is that this business can be open till 2 o'clock. So there's this legal framework around licensing, which actually benefits, in my opinion, local residents and others, that it provides a control measure for a particular premises. And then the other thing which I think is interesting about licensing is that it also focuses the mind of the license holder, because suddenly they have to look at all of the things that are going on in their area. They get representations from the police in this case, and they had representations from licensing and from a number of residents. And that allowed them to focus on the particular areas where people have concern and put new measures and new systems into place to try and deal with those concerns going forward. So I think that's a huge benefit for licensing. You know, people start to understand, they start to educate themselves, and they get told by people like us what they have to do to make their business more responsible and more effective for the local people. So it's a relatively simple license. As I said, it's looking predominantly to try and sell some hot food and hot drinks. It's not a kebab shop, it's not a burger shop, it's very much a sweet treat shop. So it's a different kind of late night refreshment license. Now, the application was submitted, and as we know, there's a number of representations which were received. We tried to engage with the residents. They obviously, some of them engaged a little bit back with us. Some of them have decided to come today. That's, of course, their right to do so, and we'll wait to hear what they have to say. But we tried very hard to engage them and explain to them more about what this application seeks to do, and especially around this idea that it doesn't seek to sell alcohol. And you have the papers in there about our opinion on the representations and the fact that they all reference alcohol sale, and that's their main concern in the written representations. So that's a matter which we can come back to if the committee are interested in discussing that further. With the police, we had a very constructive meeting with them. They maintain their representation, and again, they'll talk for themselves, but they maintain their representation based on the hours and the concerns they have around antisocial behavior and criminality in the area. But we were at least able to come up with a set of conditions which both parties agree on. And the licensing representation is very similar to the police representation. So hopefully they'll also have seen those conditions and agree that they're reasonable conditions and reflect the representations that they've made. So actually, if you look at the hours that both police and licensing have suggested, what we're only talking about here is Sunday to Thursday, because they've suggested that Sunday to Thursday they would like to see this premises closed at 12 o'clock, and that Friday and Saturday the premises could open until 2 o'clock. That's the hours that the police and licensing have put forward. So everything we're looking at with just police and licensing now is the hours of Sunday to Thursday between 12 and 2, because that's all that we disagree on in respect of the hours and the conditions, as far as I'm aware. So we then go back and look at the points which were raised by the police, and I'm going to pick the two. I'm kind of going to try to summarize briefly to try and save time, both licensing and police, because their representations are very similar. And the police have talked about congestion of youths in the area, and that this premises attracts people to the premises, and that leads to antisocial behavior, noise nuisance, and so on. Now, the applicant accepts that obviously they're trying to attract customers, and there's no point in hiding behind that. But they have to have an element of control in there. And what they've tried to do is put new control measures in place. So you'll have seen in page 13 to 15 of the additional bundle that we sent through, they've now got a customer management policy. They've ordered some new signage, which will go up shortly, asking people not to congregate around the area. And really, they're trying their best to move people away as soon as people have bought. And that's something which, the training that they've started doing now is hopefully going to help. The licensing act, the licensing policy itself states that, the authority recognizes that licensing law is not the primary mechanism for general control of nuisance and antisocial behavior. And that as individuals go away from the licensed premises, they're beyond the direct control of the individual business. And in this case, we are going to try and control that groups of people that may, or the number of people that may come to the premises. But the idea that this is the only premises on the street, I think, is also an interesting one, because a lot of the representation suggests that McTreats is the only premises in the area. It certainly is not. You know, we have, by my reckoning, I think we have 4 off licenses within about 10 houses either side, 4 premises selling alcohol. We have a number of restaurants. We have 2 what we might refer to as chicken shops that attract people to the area. We then have a very large roller disco, which opens till 1 o'clock on some days and have special events. I was looking on their website yesterday, have special events open till 2 o'clock in the morning. We have a wedding venue that hosts 500 people and have a license till 2 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, the idea that McTreats is the only premises and the only one attracting people to this area, I think is somewhat of an exaggeration. Police also reference specific criminality. They talk about a number of different occasions, one in April 2022 when they were called to the premises because there was disorderly conduct and antisocial behavior. The licensing representation suggests that there was no crime established at that time, so they were called to come and move people along, which I'm sure they get called to plenty of times. We have a letter which was written by the licensing authority back in 2023, which suggests that they were acting irresponsibly, that they were we've had a number of letters which have suggested that they're doing late night refreshment, but they haven't been doing late night refreshment. These letters suggest that they can't be open without a late night refreshment license, but they're not doing late night refreshment, so there's nothing to stop them being open. And I think some of the words that are used in the representations are a bit emotive. I mean, the police, for example, suggest that after this letter, the applicant refused to take responsibility for what was going on. And certainly the applicant argued in their response, and I can read you some of their response, but they argued that they're not the only ones on the street and they shouldn't be held accountable for everything that goes on the street. But the idea that they were refusing to take responsibility is simply not true. I mean, the email that they write says, "We are generally committed to working together with the council and being on the same side. We kindly request the council's support in addressing these concerns and finding a mutual beneficial solution." And then it goes on to say, "In light of the noise complaint and allegations of operations beyond our hours, we assure you that we take these matters seriously. We will review our operations and ensure strict compliance with the regulations. If there are specific steps or requirements that can be followed to rectify the situation, please provide us with the necessary guidance." This is not the words of people who are refusing to take responsibility. This is the words of people who are trying to engage. And they have, from the very outset, tried to engage. The licensing officer mentions the bin that they tried to
Mr. Ibrahim, could you switch off your mic? Mr. Mayhew, your 10 minutes are up. Could you conclude, please?
Okay, I'd just like to very briefly talk about litter, because that's something that the residents brought up, and we can come and deal with.
Mr. Ibrahim, could you mute yourself, please?
We can come back and deal with it through the questions, I think, maybe. I mean, as you see, there's a lot for us to go through, unfortunately. A lot's been made about the litter that's been left around, and undoubtedly there's a litter problem in that area. We've seen photographs. We don't have any reference point for those photographs, so we don't know where they were taken, when they were taken. But the vast majority of the photographs don't show McTreats litter. They show litter from the chicken shop. They show litter from residents. They show people, customers from the shops, for example. There's a co-op bag, I believe. You know, certainly some of the litter, there are branded bags. So we're not saying none of it's ours, but there's a general litter problem. And so the applicant is trying their best to try and resolve that. And they put a number of measures in place to try and help that. They put new signs up that you'll have seen in the pictures. They've got a litter picking policy, which you can see in page 19 to 21. They've got training schedule in place, a recording system, so they're going to record their litter picks. And then they've bought equipment. So they've got new litter pickers. They've ordered a new bin to go inside. So it's not that they're ignoring these things. They have to take their responsibility seriously, but they are doing that, and they're moving forward, trying to resolve these situations. So, you know, we hope. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. Say there's a lot of information still, which, you know, I'd like to have gone through with the police rep, but maybe we can do that when they make their submissions, because I think, you know, we haven't seen any evidence which specifically links this premises to criminality or violence. You know, there is criminality and violence in the area, but I haven't seen anything which says this premises
I need you to conclude.
is
You're
responsible
well over
for
your
it.
time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. We'll now move to questions for Mr. Mayhew. I'll start off with a few myself, and then I'll open the floor to my fellow councillors. So my first question is about the business model that McTreats is following. So I'd like to know what's the objective of remaining open to sell waffles and milkshakes until 2 in the morning? What kind of consumer market are you targeting?
Well, I mean, they have a consumer market because they're open already, and people come, and they're trying to, all they're trying to do is say, rather than having to turn around to people and explain to them all the time that they can't have a hot waffle because you need a license for it, which with the greatest respect, people don't understand. We've seen that today already. People don't understand late night refreshment. They don't get it. So you have to continuously have these arguments with your customers that you can't do bits of the menu because you need a license. And I understand entirely why late night refreshment is there, of course, but most of the general public find it odd that you can have a cold waffle, but you can't have a hot waffle at that time in the morning. And so all we're trying to do is say, well, the whole menu should be made available because we don't think that undermines any of the licensing objectives.
But my question was, what is the consumer market for this? Is it people who are going from one late night event to another? Is it people who are going home from events?
I think they have a mixed group of customers from what I understand. They have some people who work in the late night economy. We have people who turn up and want something to eat late at night. We have young people who generally don't want to attend licensed premises as much as they used to. The trend is definitely away from young people drinking alcohol and looking for other kind of activities, other social areas. So we get young people who turn up who want to, who don't want to be in an alcohol-led premises. So I think they have a very mixed group of people turning up at this venue. And there's certainly a market for it because like any business, they wouldn't do it.
Thank you. My second question is, we'll hear later on from the police that there has been antisocial behaviour and crowd disorder in the vicinity of your premises that residents have linked to McTreats. Could you explain what measures the applicant has already taken to manage this behaviour of its patrons, and what additional measures the applicant is planning to take?
Well, I mean, listen, the applicant is working in a reasonably difficult area. There is a level of criminality in that area that everyone who's attending today will be aware of. But that criminality is not derived from this premises. We haven't seen anything which says that criminality is derived from this premises. And the people who run this premises, have actively gone out, for example, and asked people who are hanging around in cars outside their premises to move along because they don't want to deal with this scenario. They try to move people along. We've taken that step further going forward, that we're putting some new signs up. You will have read through the policy around how they're going to train their staff to move people away from that premises. But as I said before, the licensing policy statement itself for Haringey suggests that it's very difficult once people are away from your premises that you have a limited amount of control over them. That's not what the Licensing Act is designed to do. It's not designed to control the local area. It's designed to say that you should be doing all the things which are reasonably within your power to prevent nuisance and crime and disorder and so forth. And so I think it's reasonable for this premises, which I have to remind everyone is not selling alcohol. It's selling sweets. That they make an effort to move people away from their premises. And move people especially out to the front of the premises, which is something which was brought up by the licensing authority representation. But the specific criminality at the premises, we haven't seen it. For example, the police have mentioned a number of times various things that they link to the premises. One of them is when they were trying to stop someone who they thought was dealing drugs in a car, and that person tragically obviously ran into a pedestrian. Now that happened at 9 o'clock at night. There are 15 businesses open at that time of day. What links that to McTreats? So I'm just saying that the police, for example, and again, I'm not having to go at the police. I can only go from the evidence that they presented to us, and they were very positive in the discussions we had. We don't agree, but that doesn't mean that we don't respect them. But we are not aware, for example, of any time that the police have attended the premises to demand CCTV footage in relation to, for example, when they've said that there was victims of crime who said their perpetrators were in McTreats before. if that's the case, why haven't they come to get CCTV footage? How sure are they that that happened? So these are the questions. We until we get more evidence to suggest that this is linked to criminality, I find it difficult to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. I wanted to pick up on a point you made. So you refer to the fact that the representation submitted by the police states that victims of crime in the vicinity of your premises have said that the alleged perpetrators are known to frequent your premises. How do you explain this?
Well, I don't think they said they're known to frequent your premises. I think they said the victims had said that they had frequented the premises on that occasion. I think those are two different statements. And can I say that that didn't happen? No, I don't think anyone can say it happened or it didn't happen because, as far as I know, it wasn't followed up and it wasn't reported to the premises at the time. Otherwise they would have come and asked for the CCTV. And I also think, listen, again, I can say that we're aware of criminality in the area. McTreats have had people come off the street and seek refuge in their premises because they were worried about things that were happening. They've offered first aid on occasion to people who have had injuries. So people are coming into the premises who are victims of crime potentially and seeking solace there. So I'm not going to say it hasn't happened, but what I'm saying is it McTreats which is leading to the kind of criminality which is listed in the police representation? I think the link is not proven at best.
Mm-hmm. Whenever there have been incidents of this type of crime, has McTreats ever proactively offered CCTV footage to the police, or is the policy to only do so if it's requested by police?
Well, there's two things there. One is I don't think McTreats would have any issue giving CCTV. I think they were approached once for CCTV in relation to very serious crime, nothing to do with the premises, but I think the police were looking to track someone, and I think they weren't able to offer it immediately because at that time the person who wasn't on site, but they offered to provide it at a later stage when he was back in the country. It wasn't followed up by the police as far as I know, but there's no history of them refusing access to CCTV. And again, I come back to the point I made earlier on. If this license is granted, we have a very significant CCTV condition in there, which says not only must they have it, not only must it be recorded for 31 days, but it must be made available to the police on request without significant delay. It must be available at all times at the premises, so they have to train their staff in those areas. With regard to have McTreats ever done anything about these crimes? I mean, with the exception of the ones which were reported, which is about the antisocial behaviour, which I guess the environmental health officer will discuss later. The ones which where they suggest, I'm not sure McTreats were ever told about the others, to be honest, until this stage. So I'm not sure that it was a matter of could they do anything about it. I don't think they were informed. They're aware of one or two of them because they were sent letters, but the others are matters that the police have brought up, and they, as far as I'm aware, as far as I know, because we had this conversation, we're not aware of them at the time. I think you can't react if you're not told, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. My final question, in the pack we've seen evidence of littering, some of which has the McTreats logo on it. What measures has McTreats taken to minimize littering in the vicinity of its premises? So,
Chad, what they're doing now, and they're aware that, listen, they've been aware of this problem since 2021 when they were in discussions with Veolia to try and get a bin put in. That was agreed with Veolia, but that was never carried forward. So 3 years later, we're still waiting for that bin to go in. So, that it's not that they've been ignoring this completely. Could they have done better? Yes, they could have done better. There's no question about that. And I think every one of those premises on that street could do better. And if you look at if you look at the pictures, certainly some of it is from McTreats and some of it is from shops and chicken shops. And there's the picture on the last page of the pack shows some rubbish left on a corner that's not their rubbish. I mean, they don't put their rubbish out during the day. It goes out at night and it goes out in purple bags. So it's got nothing to do with them. So you can put pictures up there and they tell the story, but they don't tell the entire story. Now, going forward, I think I mentioned this already. You can see the signs they put out asking people not to litter. The staff have been trained to ask people to bring their rubbish back inside. If they have rubbish, they've ordered a new bin which will go inside, so at least they have somewhere if people are consuming inside, they can put it in the bin before they go out, or they can come back in and put it in the bin. They bought litter pickers. They've got a new litter policy, which you can see, which says that they will do a litter pick at 8 o'clock and a litter pick at 2 o'clock, so a full pick. And then every hour they'll go out and they'll check the litter that's outside to try and clear it up. So, there's definitely a much bigger effort going forward. And that's what licensing does, as it said, it focuses the mind and allows and makes people think about what they have to do. And I'd like to think that that's a positive thing and not a negative thing, that people are now, that they're engaging.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Those were all of my questions. I'll now turn to my fellow panel members. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions?
I do. I've got quite a few, so I might let Councillor Peacock go first, if that's all right.
Thank you very much, Nick. Am I unmuted now?
Peacock.
Well, you actually, Chair, you've asked most of the questions that I had written down to ask, but there's one aspect that I'm very concerned about, and you mentioned the Roller Nation, which is at the far end of the road. You mentioned the Regal Ballrooms, which is also further down, but both those premises have security. Now, at any time, in all your talk that you've been answering all the questions, you've not mentioned the word security. Now, I don't see why you don't employ security. I really feel for the staff to go outside and confront people that are standing out there. It's could be dangerous for them, and I really don't think that you should be advocating that. I really do think you should be looking at possibly hiring security for the times that you want for the late night times from Thursday to Sunday. I've driven past loads of times because I live in the
question, Councillor Peacock?
I've already asked the question. I've asked them about security. That's my question. And Chair, please don't interrupt me in my flow. It's quite distracting. You didn't interrupt Mr. Peter Mayhew when he was repeatedly saying the same thing over and over again. When you particularly asked him to be succinct, which he hasn't been. So if you'll allow me to finish what I was trying to say.
I did not mean to interrupt you, Sheila, but if you could frame your interventions as questions, that would be helpful.
Well, yes, but then Mr. Mayhew is not framing his answers as answers. He's going into a whole long talk, which I don't appreciate, actually. So as I was trying to say, I pass there frequently late at night because I live in the immediate area and I've seen people standing outside. And I really do think that the question of security should be discussed. And I fear for the safety of your staff to ask them to go out and confront people out there. What is your opinion on that?
So there's a couple of things. One is you mentioned the two other premises that have security. Those also have alcohol licenses until late into the evening, and we know that alcohol brings its own problems with regard to violence. There's no reports from the police or anyone else about violence at this premises. There's never been an issue with violence at the premises. The issues which were raised were about people congregating in the area. In all the conversations we've had with the police, who are the experts in this field, we've never had a discussion about security or the need for security. So this is literally the first time it's been brought up. And if we've been operating for 4 years without incident of violence or aggression, then we think that would be overburdensome for the business.
So you're not worried about the security of your staff?
No, they're very worried about the security of their staff if they were ever put in that position. And if the policy which they talk about with regard to dealing with moving people away from the premises, which is in the pack, it talks about how to do that in a reasonable way, and that if they feel threatened, they have to come in and get the manager, and if the manager can't deal with it, then they would call the police. But that hasn't been an incident. So if we were calling the police every other week because there was problems with violence at the premises, then door security would be a very relevant topic, but it hasn't been to date.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Ms. Barrett, did you want to come in?
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to just bring a bit of clarification, really, because a lot has been said around the neighbouring premises, Roller Nation. We've got Regency Banqueting Suite and the Church Hall, which is above Roller Nation, that is used for various events under temporary event notices. Can I just say that none of these premises have been the cause of any violence as well, and Mr. Mayhew has made great measure that, you know, it's not his client's premises, it's possibly these other premises. So just for clarification, we are, you know, I can say that these premises have not been the cause of any particular issues. Roller Nation has, you know, it's a roller disco kind of a premises. They do very, you know, the odd event from time to time, but they do not come up as any kind of a flashpoint for issues at all. Regency is hired out quite a bit for weddings and banquets and that sort of thing. So you're not going to get, you know, the people that are going to the Regency won't be the people that are going to Mick Treats, basically, because they would be having dinners and dances and so forth there. So different clienteles, to be honest, is what I absolutely wanted to get across.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. I have quite a few people who've put their hands up. Can we complete the questioning by the councillors before we turn to these points? Unless we can come to these points later. So, Councillor Peacock, did you have any more questions?
No, as I said, you already asked the questions that I had written down to ask. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Da Costa, do you have questions to ask?
You always call me Councillor Peacock. I'd be honoured to be a peacock as well. Okie dokie. So yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to first talk about ask questions about the policies you've put in place. I'm going to try and keep my questions thematic, if that's all right with you. So in the supplementary pack, pages 13 to 15, you've got the Mick Treats Customer Congregation Management Policy, and pages 19 to 21 of the supplementary pack, you've got the Mick Treats litter picking policy. Regarding both documents, when was the policy created? What version is this policy? Because there is no date on the policy. In every policy I've always written for operational requirements at work, you put a version and a date. And when did it come into effect? And how successful has it been since it's come into effect? Or has it not yet come into effect? Has it just been produced for the sake of this meeting?
No, it hasn't been produced for the sake of this meeting. Well, I mean, it's come about, as I said, you know, when you apply for license, it focuses your attention on some of the issues which are raised locally. And so you try and find solutions to those problems. And that's what's happened in this case. You know, these are new policies. You can see, because there's also a training document in there, so you can see that they've only recently been doing the training on these policies. So, you know, certainly when, you know, this premises, as I say, it hasn't required a license. So they've come to us, and one of the things that we do with our clients is we talk them through the things that they need to be doing. You know, we look at areas of their business, because we have to do a risk assessment as part of this application. So this is one of the things that comes out of a risk assessment, is that you need to have policies in various areas. So that they're new policies. They're being implemented. You know, they'll take a bit of time to bed in, and they'll need to be reviewed, of course. You know, and see what works and what doesn't work. But you know, the idea here is we're looking for a positive way to go forward with this premises. As I said, you know, this is not a review of the license. This is a new application.
Okay, but when did the policies come into effect? You must have
I can't give you the exact date. It's within the last month, if that's helpful. They're brand new policies, right?
Right. Supplementary pack, page 23, you have the litter collection and cleaning schedule. My same question again about when did this come into effect? And I mean, the biggest omission on this one is there's no space for writing a date on it. And normally if you lose, for example, if you go to a cafe, you go to the toilet, you see their daily or weekly cleaning logs, there's always a date at the top. So I think that needs to be updated to include a date so it actually can be referenced as per dates.
Yeah, I mean, we're more than happy to do that.
And then if, for example, there are any further complaints and the licensing authority wishes to see a copy of this, would you be willing to give that to the licensing authority or any responsible authority asking for a copy of that?
Yeah, I think that's not a problem. I mean, if one of the conditions we offered around the various reports that they'll do, which you can see in the pack, also includes the ability for the police or licensing or authorised officers of the licensing authority to view those reports. And if you wanted to include the litter picking report in there, in that condition, we would have no issue with that.
Perfect. Excellent. Good news. Supplementary pack, I'm going to come on to signage. Supplementary pack 7, page 7, apologies, not the 7th supplementary pack. You mentioned regarding pages 1, 3, and 5, the other ones that they're clearly already installed, we can tell from the photo. Where will this polite notice about congregation be placed in the premises?
Well, they'll be placed outside the premises, I think.
Okay.
There'll hopefully be a number of them, so you can see them on both sides. But they'll be out. The idea will be outside the premises. I mean, we could also get another one and put it inside the premises. They're signs that we made up for that purpose, so that new ones can be ordered.
Yeah, and I think it would be worth having potentially one or two inside. You've seen some premises, they have, please respect our neighbours, etc. Okay,
Sorry, can I just? So those are different. So they have those signs. They're different signs. So
correct.
The one, yeah. So the congregate inside, and I can make a commitment today that they'll go and buy some additional signs and put those inside as well. But they also have the please respect our neighbours and leave quietly. That's a condition of the license that we've agreed with the police.
Perfect. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions now relating to engagement, and you touched on part of this in your statement. You mentioned the letter referred to in the representation from the licensing authority, which we can find in the main bundle, page 31, paragraph 8. A further licensing warning was sent in July 23. The licensing authority said they never received a response to that. Now, the email you referenced is the email you referenced to the police. So why was that warning never responded to, or why was that engagement with the licensing authority never responded to?
This is the licensing representation you're talking about.
Correct. Yes, and in the representation, the 8th paragraph down, they mention a warning from July 2023.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the actual representation that we hadn't responded to.
No. The warning last year.
The one from ABS, right? From June
correct.
2023.
Yes, correct.
Yes, that was responded to. I read you some of the response from that one.
Okay. It wasn't clear in your statement because that sounded like it was to the police representation.
No, the police representation and the licensing representation both essentially mention all the same occurrences, right? So they're essentially, all the dates and the instances are the same, which is why I tried to answer them all together. The environmental health officer, who I know is making representation, we haven't been in contact with him. We haven't been able to be in contact with him, but he'll speak to the discussion that he had. But I've seen the email string, and I read a little bit of that from there.
Okay. On the topic of engagement, based on the email, based on the representation from residents, it seems that there's been, and also representations from police and licensing authority, seems that there have been some issues. Now, you're in dispute about those issues, but there have been some issues for a while. Apart from your latest letter, which you sent to residents via Haringey Council, pages 63 to 67, what other proactive or reactive engagement has there been from the premises with local residents about concerns? Has there been any?
We would have to refer that directly to the premise license holder. I don't know if the residents have made any direct contact with the premises. I know there's been contact with councillors, and both the premises and the residents have been in contact with councillor. Some of that is in your pack from the resident side, and that the email conversations. Well, for example, the response that we were just talking about, asks for engagement, right? It suggests that they want engagement with, in this case, environmental health, and they're not against engagement. I mean, one of the conditions we put forward in the application is that a telephone number for the premises is made available to all the residents on request. So if any of the residents want to have a direct contact number, that we make that available so that they don't have to turn up at the premises where they may feel intimidated, for example. They can literally just pick up the phone, call up and say, look, this is the problem we're having right now. And then there can be that engagement. And from my interaction with the applicants, they're more than willing to engage. They want to be working in a calm, peaceful environment.
Okay, thank you. I want to come on to the opening hours. Just some clarification I think is needed. In the representation on page 39, it states that the premises in the main bundle, obviously, sorry, apologies, in the main bundle, page 39, it says Mick Treats is opening until 3 a.m. Can we clarify the opening hours? Is it 2 a.m. or is it 3 a.m.?
They're generally open until 2 a.m.
And there's no seasonal seasonal variation, certain times of the year that it's open later?
Not specifically, not as in advertise, for example, but as I referenced, there's no framework at the moment. I mean, there's no license required. They could, in theory, open 24/7. They don't, but the license will give them that framework to a point. I mean, it will give them a framework for late night refreshment. It won't give them the framework for cold food, which they could, conceivably continue to do till 2 o'clock, whatever the outcome today.
Of course. And in the police and licensing authority, so they've agreed opening on Friday and Saturday till 2 a.m., which are sort of weekends and nights you expect. I'll sound really old here, but it's nights you expect people to stay up late. But Sunday to Thursday, our working days are school days. What's the requirement? Why is it not suitable just to have the additional hours on a Friday and Saturday? What's regarding Sunday to Thursday? Why is it so important to have that 2 a.m. late night refreshments?
Because it's generating income. I mean, that's I can be blunt about it and say that that's the reason behind it. I'm bound obviously to say that the need for a premise is not a matter for a licensing hearing, of course. The licensing hearing has to look at the 4 objectives, and the premise is currently open, with their current offering till 2 o'clock, and they just wouldn't do that if it was financially not viable.
Okay. With regards to a number of the representations, including from the police, from Dwayne, from Ursula, who I'm sure we'll hear from when she makes her representation, does mention people congregating outside the venue, the premises, and in the selection of photos included, which include Mick Treats branded bags and bits and pieces, you also see boxes of nitrous oxide. You also see reports in an email. Bear with me, I didn't write down the page number of that email, but I'm certain it's on the tip of your tongue, Mr. Mayhew, because I now can't find it. Apologies. There's also mention of people using balloons or nitrous oxide outside the venue, outside the premises and around the corner on the residential street, so outside the premises. Does the premises use nitrous oxide?
Not that I'm aware. I mean, I had this conversation with them yesterday about the photographs, and they're not. That's not their rubbish. That's rubbish left by members of the public. And do people use nitrous oxide on that high street? Yeah, obviously, yes. Is that linked to the premises? I think it's an assumption. I don't think there's nothing to say that they encourage it in any way, that there's anything they could do about it. I'm sure. I don't know where that photo was taken, because there's nothing to tell us where exactly on that street it was taken. Was it taken right outside the front? Or, some of the other photos are taken a little bit further down the road. But as I said, I don't know when it was taken, when that stuff was used at that location, but there's a lot of premises in that area.
Thank you for that. I think that's it for me for the moment. Thank you very much. Thank you for indulging all the questions, Mr. Mayhew, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. I'd like to see if there are any questions from the objectors from Mr. Mayhew. I can see that the police has their hand up. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to a question where Councillor Da Costa said regarding Sunday and Thursday, why are they staying open till 2 o'clock? And Mr. Mayhew said to generate more income, but earlier he said the majority of the selling is before 11 p.m. So I don't see why staying open till 2 o'clock is going to generate more income. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
You can, yeah.
So sorry, Chair. What we said earlier on was that the majority of their delivery business is before 11 o'clock. They do some after 11 o'clock, but the majority of their delivery business is before 11. And I just repeat what I said earlier, that the need of this premises to be open is not a matter for the hearing, unfortunately.
There's one more question I wanted to ask you. You said that there's other premises in the area that obviously off licenses and chicken shops, and but all them shops, none of them, I mean, we're just disputing Sunday to Thursday, the hours, none of them shops are open past midnight, apart from the Regency Banquet, which holds events. They're all up until midnight, 11:30, midnight.
What is the question?
Sorry, Chair. Because earlier, Mr. Mayhew said that there's other premises in the area that obviously opened. I just wanted to clarify that most of the premises Sunday to Thursday, 11:30, 12 o'clock. That's the hours they're open till, apart from the Regency Banqueting Suite.
Thank you. At this stage, we're just asking questions, but if there are further statements you'd like to make, you can make them in your representation. Are there any other questions from objectors? Mr. Darvish?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayhew, one question in regards to the location. Have you been to the area after 11 p.m. yourself?
I'm not going to say no. I'm not sure it's relevant.
Okay, so because you brought up the other venue on Bruce Grove, I can assure you that the other venues, which is further down, none of them has residential area within vicinity on top stairs or back garden. Unfortunately, one of the very important issue in this case is the location, which when I am gonna bring my representation, I will mention it. That's all. That's all I was gonna say, that the MIG treats, unfortunately, is embedded within the residential part of the Bruce Grove, which is further up. That's what I wanted to raise that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. At this point, we're just asking questions, but if there are statements you'd like to make, you can make them in your representation. Also, Mr. Darvish, we can't see you. We can only see your background. So I don't know if you need to step closer to your camera. Yes, we can see you now. Excellent. Mr. Mayhew, did you want to come in?
No, I covered, the camera was covered, sorry.
I just want to clarify one point that was made, because it was made, you know, I never suggested, by the way, that the roller disco or the wedding venue was were trouble spots or were leading to trouble. That was never something I said. I wouldn't say something about another licensed premises that I don't represent. All I was pointing out was that there are a lot of people in this area to various times of night, and it's not just one premises that's open. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Are there any further questions for Mr. Mayhew or points of clarification? No. I was going to propose, before we move to the objectors who've submitted representations, that we adjourn briefly for 10 minutes for a brief break. Is this something that other members on the call would welcome? So we'll just adjourn very briefly, and we'll be back on this call at 8:23, so just for 10 minutes. Thank you. Is that okay, Philip? Do we just
yes, Chair. So yeah,
yeah,
that's fine. You just inform the meeting that it will be adjourned. That's fine.
Thank you. So we'll be back at 8:23. think we can resume in a minute or so. Once everyone has switched their cameras back on. I do think I did say 23 past, so I can give everyone a few more minutes. I think everyone is back. Shall we resume, Philip?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll now move to those who have submitted representations, and I will start with Mr. Amir Darvish. You have 5 minutes to present your representation.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for everyone.
Sorry to interrupt. I beg your pardon. Can I just make sure that Councillor Da Costa is... Yeah, he's sorry. Okay. I beg your pardon. Continue.
No worries. Go ahead, Mr. Darvish.
Yes. Mr. Mayhew, you mentioned something about the licensing, which was very good. Definitely licensing policy is not here to control. And one of the main work we do in the council is to find a balance how to promote business throughout the borough, but also make sure that the residents have the right to quiet and peace in their homes. And the whole kind of a factor underlying this case is about the location and the request, which is the Sunday to Thursday, given that they can close during the working hours till midnight and the weekend a little bit longer. The venues you mentioned throughout that street further down, none of them have any residential flats above or beyond or within the very vicinity of the venue. That's the main thing. So what we are looking at is, sorry, quickly I put the charge on. My apologies. Yes, it's about the location versus the request. So having based on the evidence and what has been observed throughout all the last 2 years, me being one of the officers in the area, the majority of the demographic of the customers of the premises, MIC-Treats, are youth under 25, which is, there is nothing wrong with that. And but the problem that we are trying to address here is the public nuisance, specifically the gathering in the late hours and any activity associated with youth gathering there, meaning that even we're not presumptuous, and there are young people who want to hang out, which is fine, but the problem is raised when the pavement is very narrow there. There are many residential area within up there of all those premises within the vicinity of the venue, and the fact that regardless of the intention of the customers who are gathering late at night, does not change the fact that how the residents would feel if their elderly lady or a female alone, they want to walk through such a crowded area. So that's why I think we have to, as a council, try to find the balance to promote the businesses, but also try to explain how that residents are entitled to what they're supposed to get with peace and quiet. As you can see, in regards to the engagement of your client, I had close engagement with them. The email you read, it was almost a month and a half after the phone conversation I had with Mr. Mustafa, which I had from my kind of notes on our system. Mr. Mustafa was very kind of confrontational and argumentative. I requested the CCTV, and they did not provide it. I even explained that I'm happy to come to the venue to observe those CCTV to just confirm that none of these allegations against Mr. Mohammed and the militaries was substantiated. Unfortunately, they never responded back to me. Nevertheless, I think finding the right balance, it would be that Sunday to Thursdays, which majority of people go to work, and that the residential area and our residents sleeping within the vicinity is a nice compromise with bearing in mind to keeping the business going, but at the same time preventing the public nuisance, specifically as I mentioned earlier, associated with the gathering of the youth on the pavement, parking their cars there. Sometimes, as you mentioned, it's hard to manage them without the security. Even with security, sometimes it's hard because once the customer, they buy their product and they want to leave there on the public highway, and they turn around and to the owner or the security simply says, I'm here, there's nothing you can do. And as I explained, there's nothing wrong with that, but gathering there, an old lady or a female at 11, 12, they want to go access to their front doors and go in, and suddenly a bunch of people standing out there. It's regardless, they are good intention, young youth standing there. It would not make any difference the feeling of the residents in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. We'll now ask you a few questions. I'll start with a couple of my own, and then I'll open the floor for my fellow councillors. So my first question is, you mentioned that you made a request for CCTV from the premises. I might have glossed over this in the pack. Could you explain why you needed this CCTV? And you mentioned that the applicant was confrontational when you asked for CCTV. Could you explain in what way the applicant was confrontational?
Sure. Well, one moment, sorry. There appears to be some problem with my charger. If you give me one.
Philip, have we just lost Mr. Darvish?
Yes, I think
it would seem so.
His laptop might have died, so we might have to pause until he rejoins.
I think it's reasonable to give him a couple of minutes in that.
Yes, we'll do that. Ms. Barrett?
Sorry, Chair, I was going to suggest, do you want to go on to have the police and then onto the resident, and then Mr. Darvish will...
He's just back now.
Okay.
Mr. Darvish, are you on the call? You're on mute.
Sorry about that, everyone. Yes, in regards to your question, we received a number of complaints about the gathering and public nuisance, people noises in particular, and antisocial behavior, and kind of these reports came to me directly. I spoke to the complainant. I explained the situation that, gathering people on the pavement not necessarily constitute a nuisance, but I will look into it. I had a number of complaints. I look into it, then I can confirm that it was always a high gathering of people, customers outside the premises. Again, I'm not insinuating it was any type of criminality was there, but the nuisance was coming as part of the bunch of young people gathering, talking, and as the time will get later, these noises, because the ambient noise dropped down, obviously seems louder if people want to wake up early in the morning, especially with those type of construction and poor condition of those type of building in the area. Hence, the communication started. Eventually, I could grab hold of Mr. Mustafa. I contacted him trying to explain, first of all, if going beyond 11 p.m. with a hot food and drink, you require the license. And he was adamant there is no hot food and drink. And I said, well, you are advertising on your menu. And he was again adamant. And he was saying that, well, if I want to go through all the notes, I can read it all through. But overall, it was the council's would make it hard for the small businesses. And I explained, no, we're not here to make anything hard for anyone. We just want to, find the right balance. And he was adamant they're not selling it. And also, majority of these people, it has no association with milk treats. And I said, well, in order to prove your point, I'm happy to, if you provide some CCTV, and then we can say, yes, you are. Here's evidence, and I can close my case. Easy to say, I've done my investigation. It was, evidence, CCTV footage, and I closed the case. And then he started explaining about the whole Data Protection Act, etc. And I said, well, first of all, I'm happy to come to the shop and view it. Second of all, I'm not investigating any third party. I'm just checking behind the counter, and said you're confirming your kind of a statement that you are not selling. But that was end of it. Which I didn't hear till the warning. It was issued in another month later. It was the email that Mr. Mayhew read for everyone, which apparently was the same email sent to us and the police.
Thank you. So essentially, if I've understood you correctly, there was a lot of back and forth when you asked to view the CCTV, and if I understood correctly, you never actually saw the CCTV footage because you were not granted access.
Yeah, and even as I said, when I offered to, I was happy to, whenever it's convenient for them to go to the premises and view it on their system, they refused and never got back to me.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. I have one last question for you before I open the floor to my fellow councillors. So you have proposed an alteration to the hours in the application, and the alteration you've proposed is late night refreshment on Fridays and Saturdays until 2 a.m., closing at 2:15. And late night refreshment from Sunday to Thursday from 11 until midnight. Now, for a shop that's selling sweet treats, these are still relatively late hours. What's the rationale behind the hours that you proposed?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier on, we as the services, local authority in our different department of the council, our job is to help all the residents. That's including the businesses and residents. So it's finding the right balance. Of course, we want to promote, businesses in the area, especially in Tottenham, to grow and have a kind of more income. Everyone's going through coming. Especially the businesses out of COVID, coming out of a rough patch. But at the same time, as I explained, it's about understanding the urban layout at a specific kind of a stretch of Bruce Grove, which has lots of residential area, flats on top of it. So in the good spirit of council showing that we are here to find the right, fine balance for the resident and the businesses. Sunday to Thursday, which is majority time, people have to go to bed early and have to wake up to majority people go to work. We propose, okay, it can push it at 11, 12, because people, even myself, when I come home from work, I'm tired, I still watch a bit of news or a bit of TV or film. So by the time I go to bed, usually the average person goes about 11, 12 to bed, which is fair enough, both to the businesses. And then the weekend, people have the day off. And then we said, yeah, sure. And that's the side that we want to promote the business in the area. Hence, you can go for Friday and Saturday a bit later as the 2 o'clock request.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. I have no more questions. Councillor Peacock, do you have questions for Mr. Darvish?
No.
No. Councillor Da Costa?
Thank you, Chair. I've got one question. All of my other questions have also been answered. With regards to, have you had a chance to review the policies included in the supplementary by Mr. Mayhew and by Mick Treats? And what is do you think that these policies will go towards mitigating the situation or the concerns that have been raised to the licensing authority, to yourself, sorry?
To your first question, no, I haven't gone through the policy. To your second question, based on my experience, both working as a police officer for 7 years with the police and also working as a security for different licensed premises. So I've seen all sides of the kind of these type of businesses. So being pragmatic and something that it will work on the ground, not on the paper. As I explained, usually customers and punters, they are good and behaving at the beginning when they want to get the service or enter the pub or restaurant, they behave. Once that kind of the business deal or product or buying the the ice cream or the waffle, whatever ends, and they're hanging out and become a hotspot for, okay, this is when I'm gonna go see my friend, have ice cream, which is, again, is fine. We have no problem with that. The problem is the location. Is the premises where it's located, is the pavement and the vicinity of residential. This is the main point of this kind of meeting we have, that the premises is embedded in a highly populated residential area. So the council we must make sure that, okay, we promote the business, okay, have the Saturday and Sunday 2 o'clock, but at the same time, the rest of the week people go to work, you have to have that, less population next gathering outside those main entrances to those residential area. Okay, as I said, main thing is the demographic of the customers are majority under 25. Young people, which is fine. I was young once. When I'm young, hanging out with my friend, I talk loud, which is again fine, but it's the wrong place. And even their good intention, it makes no difference with the feeling of the lone female or an elderly person or a residential that always open up, they see, oh, at midnight or 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, there's a whole bunch of kids standing there. So again, not doing anything illegal, not doing anything bad intention, but the existence of them is causing that feeling to the residents and creating that side of that we are trying to address in this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any more questions?
No more questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayhew, do you have any questions for Mr. Darvish?
One or two questions, just for my clarity, if you don't mind. The representation on page 31, which is from the licensing authority, that's the representation that you wrote?
No, I didn't write that.
Can I just clarify then for my own sake, so in what capacity you're acting now? So you're talking to this representation, I'm guessing, is that right?
I am, because they're based, all majority of the communication that happens throughout since June 2000, late 2022 to 2003, is specifically for the public nuisance raised around these premises. It was dealt by me. Investigated by me, and all the communication between the premises owner and the manager, Mr. Mustafa, was done by me.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have further questions, Mr. Mayhew? Oh, sorry, you're back, I think.
Okay, just for a procedural point of view. So this was written by. Yeah, sorry, my internet is dropping out for some reason. I don't know why. So this was written by, because I think one of the issues we had with this particular representation is that we had no one to talk to because it's not signed by anyone. We asked who we should discuss it with. I was assuming that this was yours because you were speaking on behalf of that. So that I just wanted to make sure that I knew in what role that you were speaking. I understand because I've seen your emails and communications that you've been in touch with them. So I understand that perspective and I have no problem with that. I just wanted to. I didn't understand in what role you were speaking today.
Chair, can I interject, please? So yes. the representation was written by a temporary officer in the licensing team, but obviously, it is a small licensing team. The officers in the ASB enforcement unit have the authorization and are able, under the scheme of delegation, to act as part of the licensing RA role at the committee hearings.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Do you have any further questions, Mr. Mayhew?
Yeah, just a couple. In the the letter that you wrote to them, the antisocial behaviour letter that you wrote, which initiated the email conversations. The noise complaint you said is not substantiated by environmental health. Is that correct?
When I spoke to Mr. Mustafa, I explained it because certain noise is not investigated under the Noise Nuisance Act, and one of those noises are people noises, which usually those will come under looking into the if it's a premises license. But because the gathering and the noise associated with the gathering was happening in public spaces, they were advised that it's come under the Antisocial Behavior Act. Hence, the letter was sent to the premises.
And then there was the email exchange. But are you? Am I right in thinking there's been no substantiated noise nuisance complaints from the premises? Is that right?
No, you're not. Public nuisance was substantiated. Noise nuisance under the Noise Nuisance Act that we can take enforcement action, as I explained to the Mr. Mustafa back then, which explained it. That's why it was not investigated. There are two separate type of nuisance: public nuisance, noise nuisance, and they've been dealt under different legislation act.
Okay, I mean, just as a point of note, the reason I was discussing the representation initially was because we were unable to have mediation with licensing because we had no one to contact. We asked a couple of times for a contact person, so that's why I think it would have been helpful for us to have those conversations and to try and reach some conclusions, but we were unable to do that on that basis. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Is there anyone else on the call with right of audience who'd like to ask questions of Mr. Darvish? No. So in that case, we'll move on. Thank you so much, Mr. Darvish. We'll move on to the police. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. In essence, we, the police, we've agreed to revise edited operating schedule supplied by the applicant. However, we're unable to come to an agreement with the times. The applicant is asking for late night refreshments Monday to Sunday, as you've heard, from 2300 hours to 0200 hours, and open to the public Monday to Sunday from 1200 hours to 0215 hours. Our submission, being late night refreshments, was Friday and Saturday until 2 a.m, closing at 2:15, and Sunday to Thursday 11 p.m. until midnight. We are of the opinion that earlier terminal times would limit ASB and crime-related incidents within the area. The rationale being that if premises is permitted to remain open in the early hours of the morning, especially in an area where there is sole establishment operating, such as late nights, it may become a focal point for antisocial behaviour, which in the past it has, as you've seen from previous reports. The continuation of such operations can make it worse, disturbances and safety concerns for the local residents. These issues often stem from increased noise levels, public disorder, and potentially criminal activity associated with late night gatherings. Consequently, this can lead to a decline in a quality of life for residents, which, as you've heard, there's premises above, there's premises opposite. There's a lot of residential premises there. Sorry. We potentially want to reduce the crime and disorder in the area, and we're trying to do this by limiting the hours where premises is allowed to be open. We're not disputing Friday and Saturday until 2:15, 2 o'clock. We're just disputing the hours the days Sunday to Monday where residents are, like you said, sleeping, going to, getting up early, going to work. Addressing these concerns often requires combined efforts between the local authority, the law enforcement, businesses, business owners, and the community to implement suitable measures that can mitigate such impacts. If an earlier terminal times are not adopted, we would accordingly request this application be rejected. There are premises, as you've heard, flats above, next door, and all residents are scared to walk past. Me, myself, I will be scared to walk past 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, where there's groups. It's just a thing, there's people that are scared, there's people that are not scared, and we've just got to think about the residents in the area. We don't want to disrupt their sleep. We don't want to disrupt their quality of life. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll now turn to some questions for the police. I have two questions, and they're quite similar. The first is, you mentioned in your presentation that there were several reported incidents of antisocial behavior in forest gardens, and these were, your representation links them to MIC treats. What evidence is there that there is a link between the antisocial behavior in forest gardens and MIC treats?
Evidence is from the residents saying that there has been a lot of antisocial behaviour. It's in the reports when police have gone to speak to the residents. It's in the reports that since the premises has opened, the antisocial behaviour has become a lot worse in the area.
So essentially, the evidence is that residents have told the police that antisocial behaviour has increased since.
Yes, from the residents.
My second question is related to this. In your representation, you say that a stabbing took place in the area on the 10th of January.
Yeah.
And essentially, there was a group of men that was involved in this altercation that led to a stabbing. Is there any evidence that these men were customers of MIC treats, frequent MIC treats, have any link to MIC treats?
I can't answer that. Yes, there was a stabbing. Yes, 3 males involving 3 males. One of the males produced a knife and subsequently stabbed another male. Why police were doing their investigations, they were told again by residents there's escalating ASB in the area, and it's from 10 o'clock onwards till 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what happened, who the OIC was, who was investigating that. I can look into it and see what happened, but I haven't got that information on me at the moment.
So was it that the residents mentioned the link between MIC treats and this altercation?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Darvish, I'll come to you shortly. I'll first take questions from the other councillors. Councillor Peacock, do you have any questions for the police?
I'd like to ask the police about the pavement outside, because somewhere I've read in the thing that they're advising no more than 3 people should be outside. Now, the pavement is very narrow, and as you quite rightly say, if you walk along the road there, you find it threatening. So would you advocate that 3 is sufficient, or would you say that more than 3 people could stand outside?
I think where they're saying 3 people can stand outside, I believe some premises have it on their license that no more than 3 people can stand outside. I think it's got to do more with public nuisance. the talking between them, the conversations at night time, it echoes, you can hear it more. So I think that's where we sometimes limit how many people can stand outside.
And do you agree the pavement there is very narrow in the first place?
I haven't seen, I have seen it slightly, yes, it is very narrow.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very narrow. You can't put, I don't believe any premises there have an application for table and chairs because it's too narrow to have that, yes.
And would you say because it's narrow, there would be no place for a bin there?
I can't comment on that. I think that's down to the local authority to comment. I don't know the guidelines around bins and.
Because they were advocating that they were going to get some bins from Veolia, and I'm just concerned about where they would be placed.
Right, I can't comment on that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock. Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions for the police?
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Mr. Mayhew, do you have any questions for the police?
Just two very quick questions, if you don't mind. Presumably you've seen the conditions which we agreed with the police. We were talking to your colleague about
yes.
When the issue around 3 people outside was to do with having 3 people smoking outside at any one time, which is a traditional condition that's put on lots of licenses like pubs and
Yes.
bars and restaurants where people are coming in and going out. And it was agreed in the communication that we had that because the nature of this premises is that people go in, grab something and go outside. They're not customers who are going back in, so they're not going out and smoking and come back in, that was an inappropriate condition. Is that your understanding of that?
Well, my understanding is of having 3 people outside, it's something they, obviously the officer that put the conditions on had to put it on to not have gatherings outside, because as in the past there's been gatherings outside, there's been groups outside, there's been more than 3 outside. So he's put that condition on to not have more than 3 people outside. I know you say that people will come and I understand you say people will come and take their waffle, ice cream, whatever they're going to take and go. But as we've seen from reports in the past, as we've heard from residents, it doesn't happen like that. They all go there, they gather there, they gather around Forest Gardens, and this is the main concern. The main concern is it's the residents. The main concern is the gathering outside. And there's been past history to prove that there's been antisocial behaviour in the area. And this is what we want to try and avoid. No other premises down there has a licence from Sunday to Monday till 2 o'clock in the morning. The latest they have is 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Sorry, my point was somewhat different to that, because with your colleague, we agreed that condition wouldn't be included in the license, but rather that we would encourage, the premises would be encouraged to move people to the front of the premises rather than to the Forest Garden side. So that condition, in the set of conditions which were agreed with the police,
Okay.
that condition which changed slightly because there is not that element of smokers hanging around outside. I understand that we need to control the gathering there, but we just want to make clear that that's not a condition which has been agreed with the police.
Okay, I thought I saw it on here, something about smoking. That's why I mentioned it. It might be something.
It was in the original representation.
Right, okay.
Yeah. No, it was in the original representation. It was just when we brought the conditions together and agreed them with your colleague that was one that we amended slightly to take it out. Now, I have one more quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that antisocial behaviour has increased in the area in the last few years, or you said specifically since McTreats opened. Do we have the data for the antisocial behaviour figures in that area or not?
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear your last.
I didn't see any data for the antisocial behaviour figures for the area, and I just wondered if that was
No,
something
we
which
were.
was- I mean, whether the statement was made on that basis, I don't know.
No,
Or
the
is it-
information we've received saying that antisocial behaviour has increased in the past. And you've got to remember
Sorry,
that
that's the information from the.
from the local residents. You've got to remember when something happens in an area, it's the local residents that would know more about what happens outside their door than anybody else.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that. The question was simply whether there was any data to back up the residents' impression that antisocial behaviour has gone up, because that wasn't included in the pack. So I was just asking the question as to whether there was any. I'm guessing the answer is no.
It was included in the representation that my colleague did. It was included that antisocial behaviour has gone up in the area, but obviously there isn't no. It doesn't go on to say how much, and I can't check now to see what how much antisocial behaviour has gone up in the area. But it was included in the representation that my colleague did.
I think based on the evidence we have, it's anecdote from residents. We don't have facts and figures over time.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Mayhew, do you have any further questions?
That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Barrett, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a point of clarification, really. Mr. Mayhew just spoke about following on around a condition around 3 people outside or not 3 people outside. Obviously, that is entirely down to the licensing subcommittee to determine if you feel that that's an appropriate condition that's required in this case. Your interest has been engaged on it, and so you're able to make that judgment call. And in terms of data, no, there is no data in the report pack around ASB figures.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. Darvish, do you want to ask a question?
No, just some clarification quickly in regards to antisocial behavior. The antisocial behavior was substantiated on many occasions by myself, as I explained earlier, because the gathering, the blocking of pavement, play music in the park car from the customers associating with the premises, it was again substantiated by myself, but because the premises wasn't licensed, it couldn't be investigated under the Licensing Act nor the Nuisance Act. Hence, it was advised to all the residents that any type of nuisance is happening on the public space has to be reported to the police to be investigated under public order and the Antisocial Behavior Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. If there are no further questions for the police, we'll now move on to hear to the representative of local residents who's on the call, Miss Ursula Casserly. Would you like to give us your representation?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, firstly, I did just want to say that I do think it's important that local areas have independent businesses, and I'm not here to make it more difficult for anyone to conduct their business. However, I do live close to Mick Treats, and I have experienced a lot of what we've been talking about on the call here today. My main concerns are the rubbish in the area and the antisocial behaviour and the feeling of not being safe in my local area. There were a few things that were brought up. I think one was about the rubbish. So the rubbish, those pictures were taken on Forest Gardens. The second is about the antisocial behaviour and the gathering outside. So yes, obviously, when there are large groups of people very late at night all together, it does make you feel unsafe. However, I think that one of the main things for me is that a lot of Mick Treats customers tend to come from 11 until 2 a.m. in the morning, and that is during the weekdays. So I work 9 to 5. I like to go to bed at like 10 p.m. and quite often I don't get to sleep until 3 a.m. and that is consistently throughout the week. It's really difficult to perform well in my job, and it is definitely an issue that I don't want to see continuing. I think that if Mick Treats were to be given a license, I agree with a lot of what the other objectors have said, that it shouldn't be so late. And I think that there needs to be some controls in place so that they are accountable for making sure that the local area is safe, that we're not disrupted, and that it's not noisy. So many of the residents, I don't think that they live locally. The reason that I think that is because they park all along the street of Forest Gardens, and when they have received their product from Mick Treats, which is labelled and does have its logo on it, they tend to congregate throughout that area in their cars as well. They play really loud music well into like 3 a.m. and it's just massively disruptive. There have been 2 occasions as well where I've got up to go to work. So this is 6 a.m. in the morning, and there are still people parked outside that are customers from Mick Treats, and they are using gas and balloons in the car as well. So I haven't got any evidence of that. I don't have a recording of it, but I can do that if that evidence is required the next time that I see that. But my concern is definitely that the customers that are going to Mick Treats during those late hours are not great for the local area.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy. Have you concluded your presentation?
Yeah, the only other thing that I did just want to speak about was that I know that Hackney Council, because I don't think that this is completely on the business either, so I do want to just speak to the council in general. I know that Hackney Council don't give late licenses until 2 a.m. So my question is also why that happens in Tottenham.
Thank you, Ms. Casserly. Ms. Barrett, did you want to come in on this point?
Yes, I can do. Ms. Casserly, the answer is that within Hackney Council, they have special zones, cumulative impact zones. So that's where they have declared an area or areas of the borough to be saturated with licensed premises. And so what they have done is to put in to consult and declare a cumulative impact zone in that given area. And it gives the presumption of a refusal of a license for anyone coming in, anybody new coming in, wanting to do alcohol, wanting to do licensed activities, alcohol and so forth, or for any existing premises there. It makes it harder for them to get a variation if they want to increase their hours and that sort of thing. We don't have any such areas in Haringey at this time.
In that case, I would say that we do have 2 late licenses already, very close to where it is that I live. So that would be another reason why I would object to this.
Thank you, Ms. Casserly. So we'll now move to some questions for Ms. Casserly. I wanted to start from my fellow councillors. Councillor Costa, do you have any questions for Ms. Casserly?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions, Ms. Casserly. So the size of groups that congregate outside Mick Treats, how large would you say these groups are?
I would say that it definitely depends. I think during Eid, it could have been 30 to 50 people, not necessarily just at the location, but down definitely into the street. An average evening, I would say it's at least 10. But I would say since the licensing has kind of come in and some of the measurements have been put in place, I couldn't be 100% sure. So I would say traditionally it's about 10 to 20 people.
Okay, and with regards to because Mr. Mayhew mentioned other premises along the road, Have you seen similar, in your opinion, have you seen any similar sort of groups gathering or ASB that emanate from people leaving other premises along or close to your residence?
No, I wouldn't say that I have noticed that. I know through speaking with other residences that they do have issues with some other locations just because of their proximity to it. But myself, I couldn't say that, no.
Thank you. We saw in the supplementary pack, and I asked Mr. Mayhew a couple of questions about the new policies put in place. Do you think those policies have had an effect, or if they are still being bedded in, do you think they will have a material effect on public nuisance?
Are you saying that if they were a part of the license?
Well, yes, there's the conditions and then there's the policy. So let me rephrase it. Have you seen any changes in behavior of mitigating crowds, litter, etc. recently? And then as a separate question, on the conditions proposed and agreed with the police, do you think that will make things better?
I don't know. I think the litter has been slightly better than previously. In terms of the noise and customers, no, I don't think that there has been an improvement. I'm still experiencing a lot of noise and sleepless nights. I don't know if I feel that it's the opening times more than the conditions, because as much as the owners would want to enforce those rules, I don't think that they have the ability to do that to a sufficient standard.
Thank you. Do you feel safe?
No.
Thank you. My last question, Councillor Peacock asked a question to Mr. Mayhew earlier about security, especially for late hours, which the applicant denies the requirement for. Do you think if they did have SIA, so SIA security, either security who are properly vetted by the regulatory authority, do you think that would make a difference if they were permitted also to have the later elements of their license?
I think I would feel safer, but I don't know if it would have any impact on the other things that I've spoken about. I think the noise would probably still continue unless they were sweeping like the whole area, but they wouldn't be, I guess, paid to do that. So I would personally feel much safer if that was a condition of the license, but I don't know if it would improve things.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Casserly. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Peacock, do you have any questions for Ms. Casserly?
Yeah, I'm not doing very well tonight because my first lot of questions you asked. Now my second one, Nick has just asked, because I did raise the question about security, and I am still very, very concerned about security. You mentioned earlier on that large crowds gather outside, and Councillor Da Costa asked you about the premises further down the road. And I know, and I'm sure you're aware, that the Regal Banqueting Suite has a big car park at the back, and most of the people exit through the back and go to the car park, and they don't generally park in the front because there's no space. And the same goes for the Roller Nation. I can't emphasize how conscious I am of your security. And also when you see the people smoking, inhaling that nitrous oxide in their cars and whatnot, do they leave their rubbish outside on the street? Because those canisters are, the normal dustman can't take those away, and it has to be reported if any of them's left there. Do you have any of that debris outside where you live?
Yeah, we do. It's quite frequent, actually. I think that the road in general is a bit of a hotspot for usage of that. And yeah, they don't get collected. They are left out on the street, so you see them quite frequently. I think it's a little bit of an epidemic, really. It's sad as well to see people in that state.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock. I just have one more question for you, Ms. Casserly. So my understanding is that a few residents have submitted complaints about this premises. To your knowledge, has the applicant, so has Mictreats ever reached out to residents to talk this through, to try to find some kind of compromise? Has there been any effort to have sort of outreach to residents on this by the premises?
I haven't received any, and I am part of a residents WhatsApp group, and I haven't heard anything there. That's not to say that they haven't. I just haven't been aware of that. I know that there was a hearing recently about Bruce Grove Burgers as well, and they did reach out. So I would feel that I would have known. But yeah.
Have we just lost our chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's. Sheila, as vice chair, you need to tell. We need to pause for a bit, don't we?
We need to pause.
Yes, I think
Yes,
so.
we do.
Yeah.
Yes. Is she back?
She's back.
Yeah.
I apologise for
The
that.
counter coup succeeded.
Yeah, we had a small coup there for the moment. And Sheila took over whilst you were gone, and then the counter coup, you're back again.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. I tried to unmute myself, and instead of unmuting, I clicked the leave button. So I'm sorry about that. So I wanted to ask Mr. Mayhew if he had questions for Ms. Casserly.
I would just ask one quick question. Sorry, I just wanted to check because you said that they haven't reached out. Have you reached out? Have you gone directly to the premises and spoken to them about any of these points or not?
No, but I have spoken to the police and the council as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Does anyone else have questions for Ms. Casserly? No. I just wanted to confirm, to my knowledge, there are no more objectors still on who have not yet had the opportunity to speak, but I just wanted to confirm that that is the case.
My partner is here if he can speak.
I'm not, I'll check in with Miss Barrett whether he has a right of audience. On my list, I have 4 resident names.
It's Brendan. He should be on the list.
Yes, I do have a Brendan on the list. We could take a short representation from him if he wishes to speak.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for your patience, and I've been listening on the call. It's good to hear from everybody. Peter, I think you handled my personal license back in 2012. So we know we're acquainted. A couple of things, obviously, unless the training I got wrong when you give me the license, but obviously as a license holder, it's part of my job to, I think you trained me to say if to uphold the licensing objectives was your training. So I'm just speaking from that perspective and as a resident myself as well. So obviously the license objectives, one of them I believe is the public nuisance, which is the major thing for me, because obviously I live local and there's a lot of noise that comes into the house. We've had to spend about £6,000 on double glazing, and then have a secondary glazing installed for another £2,000 to try and keep the noise out, and it still comes through the noise. I don't know about you, but when it's hot in summer and you have to shut all of the doors and windows, it's really hard to sleep because it's hot. So there's choices. We don't sleep, or we open the windows and we can hear everything. It's not good. My other issue is that when it's been noisy, I've had to go downstairs and confront 6 or 7 lads. Now they're young lads. They're not older lads. They're 18, 19 years old. So they're young lads, but 6 lads. It's a bit sketchy when I'm on my own I don't feel particularly safe to confront them, but you know, I have to go down and tell them to move on, tell them to, you know, get back in their cars and drive on. You know, it's a situation that could get out of hand really quickly. Now, I've called the police numerous times, and they're doing their best that they can do, but obviously they're busy doing other things. So it's a cocktail for disaster waiting to happen. Now, you guys are all in high positions by the sounds of it. So you got a choice whether you let the cocktail keep happening and then wait for the disaster, or you nip it in the bud now. So that's guess what we're here to do. I don't really have any other things to say other than that. But I do have 3 premises licenses myself with 3 different locations all across Hackney. Had it for 10 years. We've never had any trouble at our venues. We close at 11 p.m. And I am, you know, I do think 2 a.m. license is a big ask. It's a big ask for a residential area, and I think it's a bit inappropriate myself that it should even be considered. But that's what we're here to do. So that's everything from me.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Brendan? Councillor Da Costa, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. And thank you very much, Brendan, for your representation. Can I just double check in the pack, page 37, that's your representation? It's the only one that says I'm a personal license holder, so I made the assumption that's you. Okay. Right. You mentioned the training you've received and upholding the license. Oh my God, I should know the sentence. I've already forgotten it. The licensing principles. Apologies. Dahlia's going to tell me off after this call. And do you feel the mitigations put in place and discussed by the applicant throughout this call, do you think they'll go to part of the way? It seems, in my opinion, and it'd be interesting to get yours, that it seems to be mainly focusing on litter and rubbish rather than the noise that's being created through people congregating outside. So with regards to the conditions put in place, do you think they will mitigate the noise and disturbance and public nuisance that's occurring late nights?
No, because the principle of the object of what they put the case toward is fine if it's a pub or a venue that is dealing with alcohol and it's got a structure for it, but it's a takeaway venue. So once the product is bought and taken away, they can't police the whole street. It's impossible. They wouldn't be able to afford to put enough security staff to do that. Let's be quite frank about it. They might put one member of security staff out, let people come and go, but it's a whole street. So it's the takeaway aspect of it that it's literally unpoliceable. So it attracts a large audience. They buy the products, they get in the car, they move down the road, and then there's a whole row of cars drinking and eating McTreats and and taking gas, and it's a problem. So if it was a contained venue where it wasn't a takeaway outfit, totally I would get that, because you can contain the stuff within that venue, but it's not that situation. So for me, it's absolutely not possible. I wouldn't know how to do it from running my venues. The only way I would know how to do it is if I put 2 security staff on moping, going up and down the street. But I couldn't afford to do that. For me, it would cost me a fortune. I have to close the business, so it's not possible.
Thank you. The contention at the moment with licensing authority and the police, or specifically the police, because we've got the agreement on these further conditions, is around the Sunday to Thursday opening, late refreshments till 2 a.m, but allowing late refreshments Friday night, Saturday night. Do you think that's a reasonable compromise? Let's say if the licensing committee said, okay, you can go ahead Friday and Saturday, but not Sunday to Thursday. Do you think that would make any difference?
You want you asking for my honest opinion?
Honest opinion.
Yeah. I wouldn't be giving out the 2 a.m. license for a takeaway dessert shop. It's fine if it's a nightclub or a bar, or you've got like multiple staff, and it's a residential area. It's not on a high street. It's not a high street. There's a few shops. If it was on the main drag of Tottenham High Road, fine. You're in the main drag and there's police up and down, left, right, centre. But it's a quiet side street. No, I wouldn't. I don't think you should do that. Sorry, I run business. I'm not trying to like make people's life hard or anything like that. I just feel like for a late license, it's really, you have to be really, really careful about giving it out. It's not something you should be taking lightly, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. I've got no further questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Da Costa. Councillor Peacock, do you have any questions?
No. Again, all my questions have been answered, and I'm really thankful, Brendan, for you coming on board. Really thankful.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayhew, do you have any questions for Brendan?
Gaffer.
Mr. Mayhew? I'm not sure if he's still online.
He's on mute.
And he's frozen. Oh no, he's unfrozen.
Oh, no.
He's unfrozen now.
Mr. Mayhew, do you have any questions for Brendan?
Sorry, my internet does drop out occasionally for some reason today. Brendan, nice to see you again. And I'm glad the training was effective. I just wanted to ask you a bit quick, because you're familiar with licensing, as you say, you run licensed premises, you've done some training. You understand that this premises can operate until 2 a.m. without a license, selling what it does now, cold food, so you understand the concept that this license is purely about me. Sorry, I think I dropped out again there. We back?
Yeah.
Do you understand the concept this license is only about the hot food element of this? Can you see the advantage on the assumption that I know you don't want the premises there, and that I understand. On the assumption that this premise is going to be operating until 2 o'clock, can you see the advantage in a structured license which controls certain elements of their operation?
In its current form, yes, I do. In its current form, but this is an opportunity for me to express the fact that it was granted a license in the first place, and because I wasn't here when this happened. I don't know how historic this license is, but I'm talking to it. I don't know about you, but it's very hard to get in contact with anybody that has any authority without being on a call for about 2 hours. So it's an opportunity for me to express that. Okay, it's the 2 a.m. thing that's the issue.
Ms. Barrett, did you want to come in to clarify this point?
So I was just, well, a couple of things really. So but for the residents, there is reportable links on the council's website for noise, ASB, that sort of thing. You can actually just go online and do that. Alternatively, you can drop a line directly into the licensing inbox, and that will be picked up. Or you would ring us directly. It's not a 2-hour call, I can assure you. You will get through to us immediately. But what I did have my hand up for, just to say to Ms. Castley on the matters that she has raised, I will give an undertaking actually. The reports of the NOS gas and so forth, and the taking of that in the vicinity. I will give an undertaking that I will raise the matter, because there is a crime reduction project underway in the area, and I'm going to bring it to that project when they next meet. Well, I'll send the email this evening and ensure that it's put on their list and of something for actions to be taken on that going forward.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, is it Dahlia? Sorry, Ms.
Yes,
Barrett.
it is.
Sorry, just to clarify as well, it's not the odd bottle of gas. I'm talking like they buy cases of 6, like they're cardboard boxes full of gas, not just like the odd bottle. When I look down the street in the morning, I can count about 4 or 5 of these. And I feel really, really bad for the bin man that has to go every single morning. I spoke to him myself this morning. And he said, I'm just doing my job, but the only way this is going to stop is if the residents say something to people, because he's just doing his job. But he picks up the same rubbish every day, and it's really sad. Do you know what I mean? Like it's what he shouldn't. It's such a waste of money. He has to come every morning, and that's all he does is collect these bottles and rubbish, and it's depressing, quite frankly.
I totally understand it, and having to be someone who has to do the festivals in the borough. I mean, this year is not so bad because obviously the law changed on the 8th of November last year. So that opportunistic selling of NOS gas at the festivals is greatly reduced because of that. But clearly there are pockets of it happening in certain parts of the borough. So I will certainly raise this at the crime reduction meeting. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. Levitt, did you want to come in?
Sorry, I try not to get involved, to participate as I'm here to advise, but there is the one thing that I did want to mention. Brendan just said he wasn't sure why the existing license was granted. The point is there is no existing license.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Under the current law,
yeah,
without any license, they can be open selling cold food and drink. What this is about is allowing them to sell hot food and drink alongside. And so it's not a question of extending an existing license. There is no current license, and this is a new license which allows hot food.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt, for that clarification. So unless there are any further questions for Brandon, I'm now going to ask all the speakers to very briefly sum up their positions. Mr. Mayhew, you can be quite concise in summing up your position. Do go ahead.
Can I just, before that starts, just to say that the business itself, like I've got, just to re-clarify this, is really important. I've got no issue with the business. I'm not trying to stop people from generating money. I'm a businessman myself. I'm a young businessman. I've got respect for the guys. It's not that there's the issue with. It's just to be 100% is that I just don't see any way they can control the amount of footfall that leave the premises with the takeout products. It's just not possible, and that's what I'm particularly bothered about. And that's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Mr. Mayhew, would you like to sum up your position?
Yeah, Chair, I'll do it very briefly. I think I just want to be clear again with regard to what we're asking for here, because you know the status quo is the status quo. This premises can open. Whatever anyone thinks, this premises can continue to open. Excuse me. I'm back, hopefully. This premises can continue to open to the current hours. It doesn't require a license for what they're doing right now. There is no license required for cold food. The rights and wrongs of that are not a matter for today. Today, we are literally saying we would like to be able to sell the full menu to the current hours that they operate to, which is 2 o'clock. And now I appreciate that none of the residents want that, and I appreciate that position. Our position is this, that they should be allowed to do that. Been on the internet too long today. Our position is that they should be able to continue to do that, and that there are benefits to the residents if they have a license, because if they have a license and they do something wrong, the penalties are potentially huge, unlimited fines, potentially imprisonment. So they have a set of regulations which is then controlled by the Licensing Act. That license can be reviewed by the residents or others if they breach any of their conditions, if they don't meet their obligations. And Brendan is absolutely right. They have 4 licensing objectives, which they are bound to promote because that's what the Licensing Act dictates. It says you must promote those 4 licensing objectives. And we've tried to show today and in the documentation that we provided that we are going to do as much as is reasonably practicable, which is what the Licensing Act demands, that you risk assess your business and you put measures in place to reduce the risk. And those measures are the measures that we've tried to demonstrate through the various policies, the various things that we've done to date. And I would ask the committee to seriously consider that the premises going forward can be better, and the measures we've put in place are going to hopefully make the situation better and grant this license to the full extent of the hours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Mr. Darwish, would you like to sum up your position?
Yes, as I explained from the earlier, it's just a matter of having the right balance between promoting business, which we tend to do throughout the borough, and finding a good peace and quiet and safe environment for the residents. It's the location versus the request in this case, which is the Unfortunately, the premises is embedded within the highly, populated residential area. So, and as just Mr. Mayhew just something mentioned about reasonably practical. So let's be reasonable practical about something that we can all agree on. And that is okay. The weekend, which usually majority of residents can have day off and can handle a bit of late light, staying awake with, and during the Sunday to Thursday, the business closes early so everyone can have a right, kind of living, coexist together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darvish. Would the police like to sum up their position?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we just want the same licenses to apply to all the local businesses around there. Sunday to Thursday, they close it early to give the residents that quality of life that they deserve, not to have the disturbances. The weekends, we know everyone goes out, enjoys themselves. We've given them that till 2 o'clock. And we just want the residents to be happy. The antisocial behaviour to calm down a bit. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Casserly, would you like to sum up your position?
Yeah, I don't object to the serving of hot food with a later license. However, I do think that there needs to be some strict controls applied to the license, which are, as everyone has kind of outlined today, weekdays, it needs to be a reasonable closing time that is connected to that later license at the weekend, and other controls that maybe you guys can figure out in terms of rubbish, antisocial behaviour, and the security as well.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy. Mr. Brendan, Ollie, would you like to conclude? Would you like to make concluding remarks?
I think I said everything I need to say. I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So on that note, we will bring this meeting to a close. The councillors will stay on the call to deliberate in private, and the decision will be published in 5 working days. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I hope you have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night, all. Save the committee.